Take it away, guys.
Check, check, check. Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoy ETH Prague. Today, yeah, everyone's here.
Can we have one more mic?
Today we talk not just about the privacy, but self-sovereignty, decentralization, original decentralization ethos, and going beyond infrastructure, but also talk about lots of practical implementation of that generally answer the question why we are here. And I want panelists not just introduce themselves, but in a way answering a question why you are here. Because I think that it's interesting that we're in a moment of many different views on how to approach and the decentralization and the privacy and self-sovereignty, and many of us can have a different view on why we are here, and it's great to hear diverse opinions, why specifically these gents are spending time here on ETH Prague and not somewhere else. Maybe we can start from Daniel.
So hello everyone, my name's Daniel Nagy, and I've been interested in crypto since the early days, but the reason I'm here is because I worked with Victor on Ethereum, specifically on Swarm when it was still a part of the Ethereum project, and even later when it became a project of its own. I'm very passionate about the general purpose nature of Ethereum, and I do believe that the blockchain technology is for more than just, passing tokens back and forth. So I do have an interest in DeFi and decentralized applications in general. And I also think that the privacy is one of the areas where this technology still hasn't reached its potential and hasn't yet met its expectations, certainly not mine. And the reason I came to Prague is to, well, kind of keep my hand on the pulse of the ecosystem, to meet the people I know and the people that I would like to know, basically. Yeah, that's it.
Sandi, what about you? Why you're here?
I'm an engineer by background. I generally started my career at Google and Facebook, so the enemies of Web3 today. But when I joined Web3, I really was passionate about building this open web idea, how do we bring data ownership back to the users. I was not such a big believer in not a big believer in DeFi, but I was not so maybe interested in money because I just didn't work in that sector. Today I realized the benefits of DeFi, the benefits of transactions, of self-sovereign money. But the thing which got me was how do we build systems which allow users to control their data, to own their data, how do we prevent companies reselling their data. And essentially I joined a layer one, an alternative layer one called Near Protocol as an early engineer, infrastructure engineer there. We worked on very early ideas of Ethereum. We implemented some of them, and then 3 years ago I left Near, and I started my own project, which is focused on building self-sovereign applications where data is hosted by the users and peer-to-peer selectively shared with certain members they allow the data to be shared with.
Oleksandr?
Yeah, my name is Olex. Why am I here? So many years ago, I was impressed by Bitcoin and Monero, later from the technical perspective. At that time, I was working as a cybersecurity specialist, and Bitcoin opened the world of self-sovereign money. Monero and Zcash later, they have opened the world of privacy-preserving self-sovereign money. Right now, in Rarimo, we are building a privacy-preserving self-sovereign identity. That's the reason why I'm here.
I'm Mikola from Web3 Privacy Now, and I'm here because, first of all, I think that many people in this scene really want to change the internet for better. They really want to get back people ownership all over all the data. And also, I was dragged initially by many people saying it's a revolution to sort of sleepy state of normal mundane life. And that's kind of like innovative spirit with some sort of like tech radicalism really appeals to me, because much more things can be achieved while you have a passion behind, values, and sort of like a deep belief that change is possible. But when, it's interesting because when people are talking about getting ownership of the data, we see and hear around only transactional data, only kind of financial data, while Swarm, Rarimo, Carimero has totally different understanding of use case and the broader use cases of what data means. So I would get back to this root of the cause. What kind of data you would like to get back to the users and to see that people own that specific data about them, around them?
Well, I think the most important kind of data are the personal data. Probably the most sensitive data that are currently very problematically handled is medical data. I think there's a lot of room for improvement the way medical data is currently treated, and it would really be nice to have a self-sovereign solution to keeping and sharing the relevant parts of our medical data. But also beyond that, today we generate an enormous amount of what I would call externally stored memories, like videos, voice recordings, photos, which are really extensions of ourselves just because we can't remember everything, or we would like to remember more than our brain can. So I think anybody who is alive today is taking pictures, making videos, sharing them with some people but not others. And I think that the way these are being handled is unsatisfactory. And I think that it's beginning to dawn on the vast majority of people, so they're not satisfied. We are not satisfied. Almost nobody is satisfied. So I think that these, what I call like extended or outside memories, they also are a prime target for decentralized self-sovereignty. And also there's a kind of data which I would call transactional metadata, so not the transactional data themselves, but what can be gleaned from them, such as our social relationships, social network, relationships of financial support, to what charities I donated, what kind of literature I read, and things like that. So yeah, I think these are the three areas which are the most important ones.
I mean, I generally agree. So like, if you think about it from like a perspective of every time when you search something on Google, Google takes a little bit like of data, creates a fingerprint of like who you are, right? Every time when you like something on LinkedIn or you like something on Facebook, Instagram, like they collect a little bit of data about you. And essentially, like, generally, like how it happens, they know more than you know about yourself in theory, right? In practice, like they know which ads to serve you, they know maybe, they can affect, like political, elections because they know what type of data to show you, how to show it to you, and many things. Like every time when you chat with your loved ones, like this data is also being sent through like some centralized servers. And generally, like, there's like a fine line of like where, privacy stops and like where it becomes dangerous. Like we all grew up on like reading books like, 1984 and all of these like either utopia books or like totalitarian regime books. And generally, like there's a very, very fine line of like getting there, right? And some of these comparisons also, like in my view, is like also about like software as a service is a really good example of like how you provide a digital service to people, then you extract value of them. Like you're like, we want to provide you a free service, now we're going to start charging you per user, now you cannot move, and we're going to increase the seat every year. And it's also like not only a privacy problem, because if Slack stores all of the data, and like every Web3 company uses Slack, right? So like we are preaching that we should live in a better world, privacy preserving, Bitcoin should be the payment system, or Ethereum or USDC, but we are not really living that, right? So like we use Atlassian, we use Slack, we use endless software as a service solutions. And they know everything about your company, they know everything about your personal life, your medical records, and they abuse it as well, because like once you get stuck in a system like this, you can never move off. So for example, like Bitcoin was a really good example, and Ethereum is a really good example. Like you own your key, you own your money, right? Like nobody can steal the money out of you, like from you, right? Like you can transact freely. And I mean, currently we have better systems of like not, getting attacked or whatever. With MPC networks and whatsoever, but like the future kind of like I am very interested in is like, like your server, your data, right? Like I have my data, I host my data, I maybe upload it to a backup in an encrypted way, and that's where we should striving. And like usually what I say to people is like, I'm faulty of this, I also use centralized services, and like many of the current solutions we have are not so good. Like maybe hard to host, maybe hard to convince people to start using them. But I think we as an industry, especially at these conferences, should preach that, let's start, everybody as an industry use, Farcaster or Lens instead of X. Farcaster not best for privacy though, but at least, it's like the first step of moving to a better future.
Yeah, sometimes I'm afraid how much data I provided to ChatGPT, because sooner or later it will be definitely identity theft. And the biggest difference, like from Bitcoin, in Bitcoin you can control your key pair and that's it, that's enough. And nobody can steal your money without like the knowledge of your secret key. With identity, when I provided a lot of my personal data to ChatGPT, sooner or later it will behave like me. It will like access different services like me. And right now you have like no approach how to control your identity cryptographically. And like that's a very big problem.
Not in general senses, controlling your data, being self-sovereign means having agency over internet and being in control, and where the whole internet kind of like rotates around you, not the other way around. And super simple way to think about it, I was in talks with Railgun, Kiran from Railgun during the DEF CON, and he said that he has two phones, one general phone and second where the contacts are with the family and just closed friends. And I was thinking, oh, of course, the internet for introverts. You don't want anyone to be and interrupt you, to generate noise around you, because you want to just let them you alone, and you can experience internet in silence, while the internet is so much about generating noise these days. But recently, Lefteris Karapetsos from Rotki shared his opinion on so-called aligned apps, and trying to get us back to the original decentralization ethos, saying that the dApps should be open source, decentralized, privacy first, self-hosted, and stuff like that. While in reality, many protocols and solutions are not that decentralized, abuse the open source ethos. And I would say, like, what are the trade-offs that we see today on the road to deliver, and the Swarm and Calimero and Rarimo? Technical, cultural, these trade-offs that we should overcome on really reaching that holy grail of decentralized purity.
So for me, this decentralization is not a goal of itself. It's rather a means of achieving certain things. And I do not believe that everything should be decentralized. I think that there's a place for centralized applications as well. Decentralization has huge costs. So it needs to solve coordination problems, incentivization problems, trust problems. And because of that, everything else being equal, a decentralized service is going to be either more expensive or less performant than a centralized one. And whether or not these costs are worth paying depends on what kind of application we're talking about. So I'm not a decentralization maximalist at all. I do think that what decentralization solves, though, is precisely the question of control. So whenever self-sovereignty is a concern, we do need decentralization, and I think the costs are well worth paying. And I think that let's give credit where credit is due. The first truly decentralized peer-to-peer self-sovereign application was not Bitcoin, but another one from which Bitcoin actually got its name as an inspiration, BitTorrent. And I think that the first huge step towards self-sovereign data ownership was BitTorrent, and I think we should really remember that and be aware of where all of this revolution started from. It also started, so what the genius of BitTorrent was the first realization that you do need economic incentives, the tit for tat in their case, in order to coordinate decentralized behavior and keep all the participants honest, even in the face of a massively resourced, hostile environment against which you operate. And in their case, I think because the problem that it solves is well defined, the threat model is more or less well understood, they could get away with a reasonably simple incentive structure, and that incentive structure did result in an emergent behavior that is consistent with people's expectations and needs. And I think that it is the growing complexity of the tasks that we would like to solve in a decentralized manner that made these things more and more complicated. So Bitcoin is already vastly more complex than BitTorrent, and the incentives, to get the incentives right was much more difficult, and it required a lot more innovation and a lot more things to be invented. And with Ethereum, of course, we're even further than that. And I think that, like, this is the kind of thing. So getting incentives to result in an emergent behavior that everybody would approve of, that's the main challenge and the main trade-off.
Yeah, you know, BitTorrent doesn't provide you like accessibility guarantees. So, and that's probably the major problem with like absence of incentivization, because yeah, nodes don't need to store the data you need. They are storing only data they need. It means you cannot store some, I don't know, for example, encrypted information that is accessible only for you, because yeah, they don't like receive any profit from that. And that's probably was the biggest problem. With IPFS the same, when Filecoin tried to do something with that, they also like failed it a bit. But yeah, you need like to, I don't really know if it makes sense to have, is it possible like to organize this incentivization for data storage systems? So probably Calamera resolving that in some way.
I mean, how I see it is, I fully agree with you. Like decentralization is like should be used for certain use cases. Money is a good example. Using it as a settlement layer is a good example. Using it as like storing your digital ID, like proof of your ID, good example. If you want to build a social network, maybe not the best thing to do, right? If you want to build, you know, a chat communication system, maybe not the best thing to do. If you want to build, you know, maybe like vaults for people who want to pull their money or whatever, maybe, you know, you can do that off-chain and then settle on-chain. In general, like incentivization, how I think about data, like users, you as a human being should be incentivized to store your data by yourself. and take care of your data by yourself. Why? Because like if you ask people, do you care about privacy? People tell you, yeah, we care about privacy. What are you doing about your privacy? I'm not doing anything about it. Okay, are you using Signal? No. Are you doing, basic things? No. And there's a good reason why we don't do it. First, because it's hard. Like first, if you want to build like any type of peer-to-peer app, just a simple like file sharing app, a DocuSign or whatever, it takes engineering power. So ideally, like developer experience and the ways to build systems which are federated, not per se just decentralized, right? Like I really believe in federated systems. So like Mastodon is a good example. Like somebody hosts a server, we connect to this server, then like you can have replicates of this data. You selectively decide who can access it, who can moderate it, and have different systems. If you don't like it, they kick you out. You can still take the data and like repurpose it and restart the network somewhere else, right? So like that's kind of what we do. Like if I care about my data, I host my data, but I wanted to make it for developers to be super simple to build. And then secondly, if developers even build products, we have many privacy products, it should be very easy for like end users to consume it, right? So like if I ask people run your server at home and to use the network, like nobody's gonna do it. But if you could maybe just buy a modem which you plug in and it stores your data, or if you could like have maybe TEs or like all of these technologies in the privacy space which are coming up to do this like heavy lifting in like a more software as a service model for the users, then maybe we will get to adoption. The only problem I see is like censorship resistance, right? Like if, as you said, like if somebody does provide me an encrypted service for whatever, they can always like nuke my data, delete the data, or there has to be some means of like preventing this. And the easiest way is like, just do a backup once a day, every hour, or like depending on how much the data is valuable, right? It's always like a trade-off, like, do you care about corporate data? Do you care about your personal images? Do you care about your social graph, right? But yeah, making it easier for like the end consumer, it'll be harder. Like I had a discussion with somebody today. People often say like, oh, we will never replace Facebook. We will never replace whatever. We tried many times and we always failed. And like we forget that many people before Facebook tried to build a social network that big and they failed, right? Before Brave, we had many browsers which failed and some of them are still around. But usually it takes time, and it's hard, right? Like it's very hard also from like most of us stuff. We are engineers, so we think as engineers. So it's very hard to like think about like how do we get market adoption, and that's the core question. It was like the same question with like decentralized money. Like how do we get to? Are we living in a world where everybody has a wallet? Not really, but like we are slowly getting there. And I think with other systems, we're gonna get there eventually as well. Just a matter of time.
So we're running this educational activity on explaining people that privacy and self-sovereignty is a stack. It can be 20 applications. Between some will be free software, others will be more centralized, some will be on-chain, off-chain, but it's not just one killer app or a chain that solves all your issues. And I would ask you to share some of the tools you're using, not necessarily on-chain, but sort of like how your stack feels, and what was the rationality behind how were you choosing a specific tool per specific use case? Because I think many people should start somewhere, and just sharing practical apps you're using or web services will give a broader understanding of where we are and what's working here and now.
Shall I begin? I do use BitTorrent both for downloading and for sharing large chunks of information, because I think that it's still a viable solution for sharing information that is of interest to a moderate number of people. So it's a great broadcast medium. I do use so blockchain-wise, I use Ethereum mostly. To some extent, I use Bitcoin and Monero. all the others I just playing with, so I don't use any other blockchains for anything serious. As for interacting with these blockchains, for Ethereum, I mostly use a hardware key, but I use it through MetaMask, with which I'm not perfectly happy. I think that MetaMask has reached a certain level of centralization, and it has some perverse incentives not to be what it started out to be. And I'm also a bit concerned that within the Ethereum ecosystem, Infura holds too much of weight. Basically, when we want to see what happened on the blockchain, we're asking services like Infura or Etherscan. So even though I'm using these, I'm not entirely happy with using them. I'm doing it with a bad conscience. Regarding the Bitcoin blockchain, I'm using the software that comes with Trezor. I'm mostly happy with it. For the Lightning Network, I use Breeze, which is a very interesting wallet because it started out with trying to hide most of the complexity from you, and I think they succeeded in a lot of ways. Sometimes, of course, I do use Electrum because sometimes you do want to have control. You do want to look under the hood, but sometimes life is too short for it. I think the first tool for self-sovereignty that I ever used, and I still use it, is GPG, the most open PGP implementation, and I'm very happy that it actually supports hardware keys for digital signatures. So I think that, that's the first step to self-sovereignty, that you can actually protect your files, your correspondence, and so on, and you can sign things digitally. So I think that GPG, even though it starts showing its age, not only the software but also the standard, I think it's still massively useful and an important tool of self-sovereignty. I do use Signal, and again, I'm doing it sometimes with a bad conscience because I think that the way it relies on centralized server infrastructure is a little bit unhealthy, but still it's in many ways the best trade-off that we have. I started experimenting with, what's it called? The Simplex, yeah. With Simplex and also Olvid, this French thing. So I think both of them have serious UX problems, but both of them have some features that I really like, and I'm really hopeful that both of these projects will grow and get rid of their problems and evolve beyond them. So that's for chat. What else? Unfortunately, there is no really good solution for transferring large files to a small number of people, because BitTorrent is mostly a broadcast medium, not a point-to-point transfer. So if I want to share a huge video with somebody else, I still resort to Proton Drive, which at least is end-to-end encrypted, so at least the service provider has no idea what I'm storing, only how much, which I think is good, but could be a lot better. Swarm, which I helped develop, I think the tools that are there are not yet good enough so that I can just send a link to somebody who has never heard of it and can download. So if I need to send a big file to someone, I still resort to Proton Drive, again with a bad conscience. Self-sovereignty. I still back up data on like big disks and big SSDs and keep, you know, making backups and checking whether they still work and doing all that stuff. I don't really have a system. I'm doing it in an ad hoc manner, but I still store like terabytes of data myself, and that's it.
Very similar, like maybe some like few other projects which I like, maybe in Web3. One is Fileverse, for example. They're trying to build like a peer-to-peer replacement for Notion and like few other apps. Get Session. I tried many like chat apps, so like Matrix, Get Session. I use Signal mostly, but yeah, generally the biggest problem is UX. Also, like I do run my personal server at home. So I have also like backups of stuff as well. I run most of my models, like I try to play with AI models and run them locally as well. But also I'm faulty of using a bunch of centralized SaaS services just because of convenience and just because of like everybody in Web3 else does it. So for example, we use Slack, we use Jira and like few other things, but like what I would really love to see, like when we started Calimero, like we were mostly working on the protocol, like we didn't have time to build that many apps. And before we started building Calimero, we actually tried to build some of these apps on-chain. So we tried to build the chat on-chain, the user experience was very bad. We tried to build like a Slack replacement on-chain, was very bad. But the idea is like eventually what I would love to see that all the tools we use on like a daily, we are a company, 10 people, right? But we have mostly external contributors who like contribute to our GitHub. It's fully open source. So the idea, what I would love to see is that like we rebuild the tools we currently use, open source them, and then other people start using them, or at least we like kind of force everybody who works on Calimero to start doing this. And then eventually, you know, more projects will come up, more people will start using it, and we get to the end game one day. So yeah, that's kind of like, yeah, run your own servers at home. Don't use ChatGPT. I use Grok sometimes. I like have faulty, I'm like lazy, and then I do it. But convenience. But I hate myself every time I do it. I know like I shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, you know, I know a lot of people who are sending, I don't know, for example, private cards information to ChatGPT, some like personal, very sensitive data, and they don't care right now, of course, for that. My favorite messenger is Bitmessage, who knows, but I don't use it, unfortunately, because it's a hell. This messenger tries to encrypt every message you're receiving, and it checks if that's like if you're actual recipient of this message. So that's not like possible to use that at all. But I'm very happy that a lot of people right now they are switching to Signal, and these people can be not very technical, but still because every conference I have like more people who are sharing their Signal contacts, but not Telegram, and that's very great. Additionally, probably Proton Mail, Proton VPN also are good services for regular users. So they are quite user-friendly and at the same time a good level of privacy here. Probably it.
But we will get there. But the answers, you would see that self-sovereignty is also the cultural issue, generational. Like, do you know those cryptographers who paved the way? Have you been using these first tools with their clunky UX UI, like for example, SoulSeek for music file sharing? Or like, have you been born with the device in your hand that is like mobile and the TikTok installed? Those will be two different approaches to peer-to-peer, to privacy, to user interfaces. And now we live in time when basically AI is sort of accelerating also the way we approach coding. Many non-technical people suddenly became coders through vibe coding, through rapid prototyping. Design changed through rapid prototyping and through design systems. I would ask you how the approach of developing a self-sovereign dApps changed with the AI, and what are the key challenges we need to sort of overcome as an industry to solve them?
So regarding the generational divide, I think that it is being bridged slowly. So there's one tool that I forgot to mention that I regularly use and have been using for a very long time, more than 2 decades, Tor. And back then, it was such a major pain to use it. It was so difficult to configure your browser and so on. But now, like, they have this browser bundle which is maintained in an excellent way, and it's so user-friendly. You can install it on a mobile phone, you can install it on a desktop, and you know, now completely not technical people understand what it does, why is it useful, and how to use it. So I think that the Tor project should be applauded for successfully bridging the generational divide, and I think you can find people using Tor who were born long after Tor has been developed. So I think that's a good positive example. So, and I think that that's the way forward. So I think that the way forward is to talk to these people, learn what they need, study their habits, recruit them into projects, and just bring the old tech up to date so that people can use it. Regarding the use of AI, well, I don't have much experience about it, so I'm not going to talk much about it, but my current understanding is that security critical things are better done the good old-fashioned way. So that's just my take on it, but I really don't have much experience on it, so I leave it to others.
So yeah, I'm a bit younger maybe, and like more optimistic. But generally, like I think there's you mentioned Tor, but like today, if you go like on every YouTube video or like any like marketing material, it's often like buy ExpressVPN, buy NordVPN, and like many people in Web3 say like, oh, it's terrible because XYZ, they can still log your data. We've seen even actually Facebook acquiring a company which was a VPN provider, logging all the data of the users. But like still, like I think that even if all the VPN providers are bad, it's a good thing because more people are going to know it, more people are going to be conscious about it, and then if something really bad happens and we build better systems which are not, you know, just logger, VPN logger, we're going to easily get to like mass adoption and like having this, you know, maybe the best thing is like one of the biggest ExpressVPN provider, something bad happens and we have like a black swan event and everybody knows about it and everybody becomes cautious. Like maybe that's, you know, one thing which we need. So I just want to say that you know, these small things are compiling and more people are, you know, thinking about it. And on AI, I'm very optimistic because like, I mean, AI is really getting good at writing code. I think generally, I would not, do very security-related things, but I think we can, you know, build core protocols and abstract application-level things and APIs for AI to really build, you know, simple things like build me a custom front end. I want to use a different experience. And then provide like backend APIs for the front end to talk to. And then also like we can customize, you know, like we call it Calimero microservices. So it's essentially like a peer-to-peer microservice. Like it's really good at writing these type like simple apps, you know, write me a simple app which just sends messages with my friends or build me a dashboard for whatever. So I think like it's gonna be very good for society because most of the stuff is gonna be like open source, very easily done. Can be audited by humans, you can have a custom experience, and you don't have to give your, you know, tons of money to buy a Slack subscription per seat. You just spin up a custom AI-written solution, or like you want a Jira board, or you want whatever, right? So I really think like it's gonna make life easier on that side. And also, like, I mean, we use AI for finding vulnerabilities in systems which humans wrote many years ago. I mean, we used fuzz testing and like many different, you know, techniques before, and now with AI, we can just, you know, pinpoint and do better maybe code reviews and things in the future. So like I'm optimistic that, you know, it is a tool which we will use to faster get stuff done. And it's really good at front-end stuff. Like, I mean, you want a button, I always hated writing front-end code. Now it's like, bootstrap me a project, change the button, change the color, amazing. I'm happy.
Yeah, totally agree. I believe like all difficult technologies should be like radio waves. They should be hidden like from end consumer. So you shouldn't explain to user what exactly is a like elliptic curve point. It doesn't make sense. But everybody will use that. Everybody will integrate like these privacy preserving techniques in their applications. According to the AI, you know, right now you need to control what exactly it does. Because, yeah, first of all, still it cannot resolve all problems, so it can build some prototype, it can build some, I don't know, simple web page for your application. But relating to some difficult tasks, it still doesn't, yeah, it still cannot resolve everything. The question, like, to you, do you believe it's possible, like, to launch your own instance of, for example, ChatGPT or Gemini on your local device and control everything what this AI model does?
I mean, no, it's a compute question,
Will
right?
Google allow that?
I mean, it's a compute question, right? Like, OpenAI spends billions on servers a day, and I have a like 4K machine at home, right? So, like, it's not possible. Like, probably, maybe, you know, like, the question is, like, will we get to a point where we'll have enough compute to run a decent enough model? And I think, like, the model I run at home is decent enough for, like, the things I need, right? And you can always, like, you know, guide it, train it a bit more. You can host more data. You can, like, you know, have a knowledge graph on your local device as well, which helps it. So, like, I think, you know, like, the question is, I think at some point we will get to a point where it's like very, very good to be run at cheaper price. I mean, it's like always in technology, right? It's like 10 years ago, like, you know, iPhone, and 20 years ago a phone, and the internet. Like, I mean, when I grew up, like 4th grade, I got internet. I was like, probably, I don't know how it was for you guys, but I was like, you know, 13 years old, my mother is like, my grandma's calling, I cannot. Today I have a phone everywhere. We're setting satellites, we are shooting satellites, you know, connecting to us, like, so I think, like, I believe in technology progress, and that technology just, you know, will get better and better and better, and you will have stuff, you know, your AI at home. Like, why not? You know, we don't know what happens in 10 years, 20 years, quantum computers. Like, it's hard to predict, right? Like, it's impossible, right? And we are getting smarter as humans, and there's more people doing research and trying things out and stuff. So I am optimistic. I'm an optimist.
I wouldn't say we are getting smarter.
I think we are.
I just came from Brazil when I was at a conference called CryptoRave, Cryptos in Cryptography, and for 10 years they're bridging human rights and cryptography, and for them, cryptography is the key for the freedom, and they don't even call it open source software, they call it liberation software, which has totally different connotation. But in this industry, like, there was this time of ZK magic, and cryptography that is in the core, in the heart of what we do, has a bit kind of like spiritual angle in a way that people are dropping acronyms like ZK, FHE, PPC, TEE. There are lots of researchers or mathematicians coming to the scene for, like, maybe easy money, maybe like just some career growth. But at the same time, the general public doesn't get it the same as in many human rights organizations or like outside of the bubble. How you would approach or like articulate the role of cryptography on the scene and its future role?
So for that, I would like to refer everybody to one particular cryptographer, the author of the Big Red Book. Unfortunately, his name just escapes me. Bruce Schneier, yeah, Bruce Schneier. So Bruce Schneier wrote the Big Red Book, and if you read the introduction, if you read the introduction to this book, it inspired, I think, the whole generation of cypherpunk that, okay, this is the technology where the little guy is suddenly on the same level as the most powerful nation states. And this cryptography is this technology that will level the playing field for everybody and is going to liberate all of us. And it didn't really happen that way. And I think that Bruce Schneier acknowledges it in his later books. And also I can recommend everybody to read his blog, the way he looks at things, because I think he's been one of the people who inspired this kind of thinking, but who also understands it well enough, both from a human point of view and the technical point of view, to realize his mistake. So I think that cryptography does have its limits. Currently, it is both the complexity and the long supply chains of both the hardware and the software that we use for it, that there's so many points at which one compromise can kill the security of everything, that it's not true at all that the little guy is at the same level as nation states. Even like poor nation states like North Korea are a grave danger to anybody's security. And I'm not talking about vastly more powerful and well-resourced states that are, putting their agents into every chip and every memory cell. So I think that cryptography should be thought of at its place. It does have its uses. It's definitely a very important part of attaining self-sovereignty, but it's not a magic bullet, and it cannot do a lot of things that people naively think it can do. And I think that the smartest people already realize that, and it's worth reading them.
So if understood was, how do we get more people into cryptography or general?
More like sometimes in this scene, cryptography is seen like a magic or like a way for fundraising, if you call it directly.
Like generally. I mean, it's not only cryptography. It's like whatever you do in Web3, it's launch a token, raise money, and then not deliver much. That's like a pattern we see often. And I mean, we use buzzwords, not only FAG. Like, I mean, if we took realistically FAG today is slow, right? Also ZK is slow, right? But for every, 5 bad guys, there's 5 good guys, and 5 good guys are gonna build some tech, 5 guys are gonna scam some people, but the technology is progressing. And like how I see it, like I, came from like Google and Facebook, and like when I was young, I grew up in Croatia. I was doing algorithm competitions, math competitions with only one goal. I want to work at Google because back then that was like the hottest thing you could do, right? So I was like, I want an internship at Google. I want to work at Facebook. And that was like just because everybody in my kind of crew was like, yeah, that's a good paid job. We are all poor in Croatia, so learn maths and the stuff and go to Silicon Valley. Like that was the dream, right? And I think like now, with Google and Facebook and all of these companies, they were the best thing we had then, and they became a billion-dollar business for. There's good reasons why, like I am proud that I worked there, but like I'm not happy where the future is going because I didn't know back then that we can, adapt and be better. And I think it's like the same with Web3 now. With back then we had pets.com and Amazon, great company, one-click buy, pets.com go bust. And I think the same thing is going to happen in Web3. It's going to bring a lot of talent. It's going to be the interesting place to work. Smart little kids will come and say, like, I want to learn maths, I want to learn cryptography, join the industry. Many of the scammers will die, and we as a society 10 years from now will have real Web3 companies who want to build for the better, right? And then after that, we're going to have probably another cycle in quantum, my quantum, whatever, or I don't know, like, but it's going to be this, like, it's just, if there's no capital and not a big buzz, nobody's going to come, like, we're going to be 10 times slower, and we're going to be, but, like, you need, like, I feel like one doesn't go without the other. Like, we need fart coins and meme coins and dog shit coins as well. Like, I do not like them, I don't buy them, I would never recommend them, but like, you know, if people willing to put capital into that, I mean, do. But then fund also ZK stuff and FEG and whatever, right?
Yeah, we have like really interesting situation when cryptography, right now, when cryptography adds some additional value to projects. Because initially, how we came to that? Initially, cryptography showed that you can control ownership using like cryptographic key pairs, and it added additional properties to money, to like internet communication. Then cryptography showed that you can do some private things. You can retrieve anonymity, confidentiality, etc. using cryptography. So it again added additional value. Then cryptography used it for integrity of computation. So you can prove some execution trace, but like in some compact manner. So that's additionally added some value to current like products. And right now, like people are looking into that, and they think that cryptography will resolve all problems with their products. And usually that's not true. Usually you cannot apply cryptography for human problems, to social problems, to like problems with your ecosystem engagement, etc., etc. So still a lot of like pitches with corresponding like cryptography properties help attract like more money, like more engagement, etc. But sooner or later it will end. And so cryptography doesn't provide properties it cannot provide. And it should be like clear for everybody.